G'day. Had an emergency repair to do to the lathe this week. One of the felt wipers on the ways held on with the die cast bracket, and the bracket broke. After 65 years, I think that's a little bit rough, but you play with the cards you're dealt. So I have to make up a new one, and I also have to then make up or find some felt to make up a new wiper, as the old one's looking a little bit manky. Disaster has struck in that the holder for one of the felts on my lathe has broken. The two pieces here just fell out. Which way is that one? That one goes in there, and that one goes in there. It looked like it was caved in a bit, and it looked like it had a bit of a thump. But when I look at the fracture surfaces, they're pretty dark and horrible. So it's been like this for a while. Could have even been like this from when I got it, but it's just decided that it's giving up the ghost. It holds the felt in, so there's a little cavity there for the felt, and so I've got to make a new one. Now, I've started out with a bit of material, and I've rounded the ends off with a saw, and now I'm cleaning that up with a file, and I'll show you a filing trick in a moment, which I've probably shown you before, but oh well, there we go. But basically, because of the shape of this thing, it's half round. There's nowhere really to hold it. So what I'm going to do is shape that, put the holes in, all that sort of thing, while it's still attached to this, mill out that pocket, and then sort of the last thing I'm going to do is cut that off, and that should give me a replacement one of these. The lighting isn't all that great, but this is what it's meant to look like. So flat across there, a couple of screw holes, all that sort of thing, nothing terribly complicated. I really don't feel comfortable using the lathe without it, because all sorts of grit and things could get into the ways, so I want to fix it. Here's my blank. I've gone around the top first with a coarse file, and then with a fine file. And I've mentioned this before, but for people new to the channel or haven't seen that particular episode, what I use is a bit of chalk, and this is just plain blackboard chalk. And you put that in the file like that, and then you file with it. And what that stops doing, the aluminium doing, is picking up on the file. It'll peel in the gullets of the teeth, and then you get drag marks across the top. So there's a trick for getting a reasonable finish out of aluminium. So now that I've got that shape, I'm going to round the edges and start putting some holes in. I've got my basic shape, and I've smoothed the edge down. I've put a radius on there, which it's probably a little bit more actually than what's on the original part, but it looks casting like, so that's all fine. Now, when I put that up there, one of the things I did was I got my square and put that in there to give myself a nice, should we say, cut-off line, mark, something, that sort of thing. What I want to do now is drill those holes. Now, I'm going to use this as to spot through. It's an 11/64 hole. It's that bit's quite all right. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp a bit of flat onto that line there, so that when I'm drilling through, I can put a clamp there, and I've got another clamp there, and this thing won't twist or hopefully won't move on me. Once I've got one hole in, I can then put a pin in or something like that to further locate it. But at the moment, I want to drill those holes, and I don't want to be sort of halfway doing it, and then this thing moves on me, and I don't know whether I'm in the right spot or not. So this is the setup here for the final hole. Gauge pin in there to line up the holes. I've still got my fence there to keep things lined up, and then underneath here I'll have a piece of wood just to provide some direct support, and that's fine. That'll give me the holes. Once I've got the holes, I can then come along and put the countersink in for the heads, and that's not a big problem. That should then be basically this side done. Once I've done that, I can then flip this thing over. I need to reduce this in size a little bit, because this is 3/8 thick and this is 10 millimeters, so there's half a millimeter in there roughly. And I also need to put the pocket on the back. There's my version and there's the original. So far I'm not doing too badly. I've left this, as Dave over at Ingles Coachworks would say, a hair strong. What I'm going to do is use the screws, and probably in hindsight it would have been even smarter to tap those holes rather than just have them through, but can't have everything. And I'm going to position them like that and then clamp up against a bit of wood. And what I want to do is just run the file across that to make sure that this and this are the same height. Okay, there's not much in it, but there's just a tiny little bit of proud there, and that's just to make sure that I haven't got this scraping on the way, but at the same time I haven't got it sitting right up so that the felt can squish out. So once I've got that done, then it's just a matter of cutting a new piece of felt and I'm away. When I first got the lathe and went over and replaced a few things, I couldn't get any 1/4 inch felt, so I got 2 pieces of 1/8, and they worked, but never quite satisfactory. So when I got a chance to get some proper 1/4 inch wool felt, I jumped at it, and so that's what I'm using here. It's a little bit grubby because I've been using these as a template, but that's basically it. That'll sit on the lathe there. I can screw that on there and replace that one. I finished up in the evening and thought, oh good, I've replaced that felt holder and the felt in it, and then I started feeling a little bit guilty that I hadn't done the rest of them. So this is the felt offer of the felt holder of a V-way. It's once again cast aluminium, but it's also got a bit of steel on there with a small what would you call that, slot, I guess, in there, and that's for a small bit of felt to wipe the underside of the way where the bearing sits. That one's not such a big issue, but the felt that goes in there is that shape, one on that side of the carriage, and then there's a mirror image on the other side. So if I cut out 2 pieces of felt, sorry, I'm all over the place here. If I cut out 2 pieces of felt like that, I should be right. The best thing I've found for cutting the felt is actually a wood chisel. Using a bit of something like some MDF, and then just putting the felt on top and cutting like that, and that gives you a nice clean edge. You can possibly do it with a pair of scissors, but that has to be pretty sharp, and this stuff being 1/4 inch thick and quite dense is not that easy to cut. I've tried it with scissors, and the chisel is the best way to do it. Straight lines are easy. I can just measure those out with a ruler and get them to the right size. These things are a little trickier, and I want a nice decent fit in there. So what I've done is I've got a bit of paper. There's actually an old post-it note, but I've put that in there, and then with my grubby fingers just run along the edge there to give myself an outline, and you can probably just see that there. So I've now got a bit of paper shaped like that, which will sit in there, and I'll now flip that over and sort of trace in, you know, 1 millimetre or 1.5 millimetres, something like that, to get my cutout, and that'll give me a paper template I can put on there. I can use a ballpoint pen to run around that and cut that out. Here are my cutout bits of felt, and they fit in there, you know, reasonably well. When that's in there, that's going to get pushed right up in there, so a little bit of loose is all right. So I can now. Final thing about fitting felts like this is soak it in oil first. So just put it in some oil, preferably the same stuff you're going to lubricate with, but doesn't really matter too much, because the felt will soak up the oil, and so you want it to stay in the ways to lubricate. So you're better off soaking it in oil first, then putting it on, and then letting things oil or not as you go. Anyway, that's cutting felts and fitting felts and all that sort of thing. So I've got those bits. I've got these for the bit down the bottom here. I'll probably unscrew that, put this bit on, and then screw that back up to get a nice tight fit. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, and see you for the next one.